Good evening, and welcome back to Worlds Before Morning. Tonight we are going somewhere warm, a small Roman town by a blue bay, almost 2,000 years ago, on an ordinary night at the end of a long hot summer. Its name is Pompeii, and you may know something about this town, something its people do not know, something history knows. We are going to set that aside at the door together. The way you take off dusty shoes. It has no place in this story. Tonight the city is whole, and busy and beautiful and putting itself to bed. And that is the only Pompeii we will visit. So before we walk in through the sea gate, take a moment for yourself. Dim the lights if you haven't already. Put the phone somewhere it can't reach you. Settle back until the bed holds all of you. And let your shoulders come down the way heat leaves a stone wall after sunset, slowly, and with relief. If these quiet nights help you rest, you're welcome to subscribe, but only if it truly helps. And tell me in the comments where in the world you're listening from tonight. I read them all, and I like to imagine the map of it, all those rooms going dark, one by one, around the world. That's the last thing I'll ask of you. From here on, there is only the warm stone, the fountains, and the story. And as always, if you drift off along the way, between the bakery and the harbor, in some garden full of cicadas, that is not a failure of listening. That is the story doing its work. It knows the way to morning without you. Sleep whenever sleep comes. Tonight you'll walk up from the sea as the streets cool, and hear the fountains take over the town from the tradesmen. You'll smell tomorrow's bread already rising. You'll read what the walls have to say, because the walls of this town talk. And late, from the ramparts, you'll see the whole city asleep under the stars, with its quiet mountain standing over it like an old neighbor. Nothing else. That is the whole journey. It is enough. The evening boats are coming in, down at the mouth of the river. Let's start there and walk up with the last of the light. It is the hour after sunset, and you are walking up from the harbor with the sea at your back and the whole warm evening ahead. The road climbs gently from the river mouth toward the town gate, and it is crowded in the easy, unhurried way of day's end. Fishermen with the last baskets, a mule cart of empty jars, two sailors arguing amiably about nothing in a language you half know. The air is doing that thing it does on this coast at this hour, layering cool salt off the bay underneath. Then the day's stored heat breathing up out of the road. Then wood smoke and supper smells threading through from the town above. Every few steps the mixture changes. Fish, tar, dust, oleander, someone's onions in good oil. You could map this road blindfolded, by nose alone. Behind you, the bay is going the color of hammered pewter, with the last light lying along it in one long bar. Fishing boats dot the shallows, and the men in them are standing to their oars, homeward, in no more hurry than the light itself. This is a coast that has been fished for as long as anyone's stories go back, and it shows in the calm of it. Everyone doing what their great-grandfathers did, at the pace their great-grandfathers set. Ahead, the town waits on its low shelf of old lava, walls the color of baked bread, roof stacked warm and red up the gentle rise. Pompeii is not a great city, and would be offended to hear itself called modest. It is a port town of perhaps 10 or 12,000 souls, prosperous, proud, a little loud, famous locally for its fish sauce, its wine, and its politics. Everyone on this coast knows somebody in Pompeii. It is that kind of town, and above and behind it all, filling a third of the northern sky, stands the mountain, Vesuvius, the locals call it, when they bother to call it anything. The way you rarely bother naming a family member who is always in the room. It is green to the shoulders with vineyards, gray-blue at the summit, and utterly, permanently calm. The best wine of the district grows on its slopes, The town looks at it the way farm children look at a sleeping grandfather, fondly, without a single thought. You pass the roadside tombs that line the last stretch before the gate. As they line the approach to every Roman town, the dead politely housed along the roadway where travelers will read their names and keep them company. It sounds strange, perhaps, to modern ears. Walk it once at dusk, and it stops being strange. The little monuments stand in the warm evening like neighbors at their doors, and their inscriptions ask only the mildest of favors. Stop a moment, traveler. Say the name. Go well. At the sea gate, the road passes under a deep arch, and the town takes you the way warm water does, all at once and gently. Torchlight on old stone, a porter nodding you through with half a glance, guests being nothing new here. The long straight street ahead, climbing between shuttered shops toward the heart of the town, its paving stones worn to a shine and still warm through your sandals, holding the whole day's sun like bread holds the oven. Somewhere above the rooftops, the first star is out over the mountain's dark shoulder. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars tonight, and the town below it is lighting its lamps. You have arrived at exactly the right hour. The main street of Pompeii in the last hour of dusk is a town-sized exhale. All day this stone channel has been a river of business, carts and porters, auctions and arguments, the whole Mediterranean morning pouring through one narrow channel. Now the day is being folded up and put away, shop by shop, and the street is remembering that it is also simply a nice place to stand in the evening. The shopkeepers are out with their buckets, sluicing down the paving in front of their thresholds, and this is the hour's great ritual. Water hits the hot stone with a hiss you can hear a block away, and a ghost of steam comes up, and with it that smell, the one every human being who has ever lived in a hot country knows in their bones. Wet stone after a scorching day. If summer evenings have a scent, it is this one, and the whole street is rich with it. The paving itself is worth your attention, because it is a small masterpiece of civic stubbornness. Great polygonal slabs of gray lava, fitted like puzzle pieces, grooved deep by generations of cartwheels, and at every corner, the famous stepping stones, big oval blocks standing up out of the roadway like a row of whales' backs, so that citizens can cross without touching the street even when the water runs or the mud rises, while the cartwheels pass neatly through the gaps. Pedestrians dry, commerce moving, everyone accommodated. Somebody thought hard about this street a long time ago and got it right. The awnings are coming down all along the way, poles rattling, canvas folding, each shopfront closing its eye for the night. Behind the counters, the day's remainders are being carried in, baskets of figs gone soft in the heat and destined for someone's supper, the last melons, trays of yesterday's bread marked down to nearly nothing and going, as it always goes, to the woman who keeps the corner shrine swept. The street's economy has soft edges at this hour. Most economies do, if you watch them at dusk. Overhead, the last act of the day's sky. The swifts, who have raced whistling over these roofs since dawn, are climbing away to wherever swifts spend their nights, which no one in this town knows, and no one in any town would know for many centuries yet. Taking their place, silent as thrown cloth, come the bats, out of the eaves and the tower joints, stitching the darkening air above the street. The changing of the sky's guard. Between the two shifts there is a still moment, a minute perhaps, when nothing at all is flying. It is happening now. The evening's henge. On the balconies above the shops, the town's upper life is coming out for air. Stools set out on planks over the street. An old woman with her spindle, working the last light, wool to thread above the passers-by. Two neighbors talking across the gap between their railings in the low balcony voice that carries 3 houses in each direction and is intended to somebody's supper smoke, somebody's caged thrush singing against the cicadas. The street below belongs to feet and commerce. The evening up here belongs to the balconies. Sound is changing too. The day's noise, iron tires on stone hammering from the coppersmith's row, the auctioneer's sing-song, all of it is draining away southward with the light. And underneath it the evening sounds are surfacing as if they had been there all along, waiting. Sandals scuffing home, a mother calling one name up a side street, twice, in exactly the tone mothers have always used for a second calling. And the cicadas, in every garden and street tree, tuning toward their full nighttime shimmer. Lamps are appearing in the doorways, small clay lamps the shape of covered saucers, each with its little tongue of flame at the spout. A town like this goes to bed by lamplight the way it does everything else, socially. Nobody's lamp is lit alone. You light yours from the neighbors, cupping the flame down the block, and the light travels hand to hand up the street the way news does, and gossip and songs. Down the middle of the cooling street comes the water seller's donkey, unold, heading home by himself with empty jars clinking, and every shopkeeper he passes says something to him, and he ignores every one of them magnificently. He has done this route twice a day for 11 years. He is, by general agreement, the only citizen of Pompeii who has never once been wrong about anything. By full dark the street will belong to the fountains and the cats and the occasional lamplit couple walking slow. The town has perhaps an hour of soft business left in it, suppers and doorstep talk, and then the night shift takes over. Bakers and watchmen and dreams. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars now, up past the roof line. The street cools under your feet, degree by degree, like a great animal settling to sleep. Every few blocks where the streets cross, Pompeii keeps a fountain, and the fountain at this crossroads is the true town hall of the quarter. It is not grand. A rectangular basin of gray lava, chest-high, fed by a bronze spout set in a carved stone face, whose features 200 years of running water have softened to a kindly blur. The water runs day and night. It has never once stopped in living memory. And that fact, if you think about it, is the whole Roman world in a sentence. The water comes from mountains you can barely see, far inland, gathered by a great aqueduct and walked here across the country on stone arches, downhill all the way. No pump in the world but gravity and no fuel but cleverness. It arrives at a tower by the gate, divides into lead veins under the streets and rises at last, cool and constant, out of this worn stone face. The town drinks from perhaps 40 such fountains. No one in Pompeii has ever had to be told to be grateful for it, because most of them have traveled and know what a town without fountains smells like. If you follow the water backward, it leads to one of the town's quiet marvels. Just inside the high gate stands the water tower, a plain brick castle 3 stories tall. The aqueduct's flow arrives there first, into a great lead tank at the top. From the tank, pipes descend and divide again, spreading under the streets to every fountain and bath and better house in town. The pressure is arranged by simple height, tank above pipe, pipe above spout. No engine anywhere, just water, remembering downhill all the way from the mountains, and a town clever enough to stand underneath. There is a man whose whole trade is this system, and the quarter calls him the water man. By day he reads the little bronze taps, settles disputes about pipe sizes. For pipe size here is money and status and law. By night, when something drips where it shouldn't, he walks the lines with a lamp and an ear. He can stand at a junction box and hear he claims. Which street has a loose joint, the way a physician hears a chest? Nobody doubts him. The fountains run, year in, year out. In this town, that is proof enough of anything. At this hour, the fountain is doing its second-best business of the day. The evening water, kitchen girls with 2 jars each, balancing them with a grace that is entirely unconscious and entirely learned. An old man filling a small cup slowly, because the walk to the fountain is most of his evening society. Children sent for water who are mostly conducting naval battles with bark boats in the basin's corner, under the theory, correct, that no adult at this hour has the energy to object. The rim of the basin tells the neighborhood's whole history in wear marks, 2 deep glossy hollows where 10,000 jars have rested, a polished patch where hands brace to lean and drink directly from the spout, which everyone does and everyone's mother forbade, initials here and there, cut discreetly into the stone by boys long since grown old, and 1 heart with 2 sets of letters, which the quarter has courteously declined to sand away for over a generation. Beside the fountain, as beside most fountains here, stands the corner shrine, a niche in the wall with a painted pair of protective spirits, dancing figures with cornucopias, guardians of the crossroads. Fresh flowers sit under them tonight. A little wine has been poured, and the paint is bright, because the neighborhood keeps them up the way it keeps up the fountain, as shared infrastructure of 2 different kinds. One serves the body, one serves the feeling that somebody benevolent is minding the corner. A Roman street sees no reason to do without either. Stand here long enough, and the whole quarter passes. The baker's wife with news, the fuller's boys, scrubbed pink after a day in the wash troughs, gulping straight from the spout like colts, the physician's slave filling the good jug, the schoolmaster filling the plain one, a sailor splashing his face and neck and swearing softly with pleasure at the cold of it. Rank arrives at the fountain and dissolves. Water is the one republic everyone belongs to. Later, past midnight, the fountain will keep running with nobody by, and that is when you should come back, because a public fountain at night, running for no one in an empty moonlit street, is one of the quietly great sights of the ancient world. All that engineering, all those mountains and arches and lead, faithfully delivering water to a square of sleeping stone, on the standing assumption that somebody might come. Somebody might. The offer never closes. You cup your hands and drink. The water is cold, faintly stone-flavored, excellent, and has traveled farther to reach you than most of the people in this town ever will. Overhead the sky has gone full dark, and the mountain is only a shadow on the stars, and the fountain talks quietly on, telling the crossroads the one thing it knows: still here, still running, all well. Follow the best smell in the quarter 2 doors up from the fountain, and you arrive at the bakery, just as the baker is finishing his day, which is to say, just as he is setting up tomorrow's. A Roman bakery is not a shop with an oven at the back. It is a small factory, mill and bakehouse and counter all in one. And it is the warmest, best-smelling, hardest-working building on any street lucky enough to have one. The front of the house is the counter, marble-topped, already scrubbed, where the morning queue will form at first light for the day's loaves. The middle is the great domed oven, brick and tile with an iron door. So like the ovens, this coast still builds that a baker from either century could work the other's shift after 5 minutes of grumbling. And the back is the mill room, where the real labor lives. 2 great hourglass-shaped millstones of rough volcanic rock, each turned by a blindfolded donkey walking his patient circle around it. The donkeys are done for the day, and this is the hour they are seen to, unharnessed, rubbed down, fed. The making much of falls to the baker's youngest daughter, whose official job this is, and who takes it with immense seriousness. The gray one, the older, leans his whole forehead against her chest. She scratches his ears, and he closes his eyes, and the two of them stand like that a long minute in the warm mill room, the day's work draining out of them both. Mills grind grain, but it is affection in the end that keeps a bakery running. The baker himself is at the oven, banking it, and you know this craft already. From a longhouse hearth and an abbey kitchen far from here, some arts are the same everywhere under every sky. The coals raked together, the ash drawn over, the iron door set ajar just so, holding the great brick dome's heat overnight like a secret. By dawn, it will still be hot enough to take the first batch with only an armful of new fuel. A good oven, once truly hot, is never really allowed to go cold, and this one has not been cold. The baker will tell you since his father's day. Behind him, on long wooden tables, tomorrow is already rising, round loaves under linen, scored deep into 8 wedges each. The standard loaf of this whole world, stamped before baking with the bakery's own mark. Bread here is public life. Its weight is regulated, its price is politics, and its maker is a person of consequence in the quarter, whether the quarter admits it or not. Elections have been swung on the goodwill of bakers, and more than one wall in this town says so in fading red paint. The morning queue, though it has not formed yet, already exists, the way all rituals exist overnight. The fuller's boys will be first. They are always first, sent at a run with the household's bread money knotted in a cloth. Then the old men who rise early on principle and treat the warm counter corner as their club. Then the harbor men coming off the night tide. Then everyone. The queue has its own law, politely enforced by itself, and its own news exchange, faster than the forums. The baker hears the whole town's mourning through his counter window. In the time it takes to sell 40 loaves, magistrates would pay for such intelligence. The baker gets it with the sunrise free. The smell in this room at this hour deserves its own sentence. Warm flour, live yeast, banked oak coals, scrubbed wood, and a fading note of donkey. All of it baked together by the day's heat into something that is not merely pleasant but deeply, anciently reassuring. The smell of tomorrow already provided for. Every human settlement that has ever succeeded has smelled like this room somewhere in it. Towns that lose this smell do not remain towns. The baker's family eats late, at a small table in the mill room, flatbread from the oven's mouth, oil, olives, the soft cheese his sister sends in from the farm, and the day's talk running down to embers with the meal. Tomorrow begins for them before the stars fade, so the household keeps early hours, and by the time the street outside has gone quiet they are climbing to their beds above the shop, leaving the ovens to hold the fort, warm and ticking, all night below them. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars above the bakery's little courtyard, and under that shadow, in the dark, 30 loaves are quietly becoming tomorrow. Sleep in a town like this always smells faintly of rising bread, if you know how to notice. Now you know how to notice. At the next corner, where lamplight still pools warmest, the last public business of the evening is winding up its trade. It is a wine counter, one of the little cookshops this town keeps on nearly every block, and there is no cozier institution in the Roman world at this hour. An L-shaped marble counter open to the street, big clay jars set down into it with their round mouths at counter height, a shelf of cups, a small stove, and the proprietor drying his hands in the manner of hosts everywhere, on the manner of an apron that has seen the whole day. Most people in Pompeii do not cook much at home. Apartments are small, fuel is dear, and the cook shop on the corner does it better anyway. So these counters are the town's shared kitchen and its living room both. All day they pour warm spiced wine and ladle out lentils and chickpeas, bread and cheese and hot sausage, to workmen and shopgirls and anyone whose supper has no better plan. And in the evening they hold the neighborhood's last hour of company, the lamplit hour, the one going on right now. 2 fishermen are at the counter finishing a jug of the house wine, cut with warm water in the civilized fashion. They replay the day's catch with hand gestures that grow measurably as the jug empties. The fuller from up the block is having his usual, a bowl of chickpeas with oil, standing in his usual spot, wearing the mild all-over cleanness of a man who works in laundry. And on the counter's end sits the shop's cat, tortoiseshell, immovable, in the exact spot she is never allowed to sit, supervising the closing of the shop she is convinced she owns. On the evidence, she may be right. The proprietor works around her, the way you work around management. Cups washed in the basin and racked, the stove's little fire dying down to a warmth that will hold till dawn. The lids going onto the great counter jars, wine in this one, chickpeas there. The good olives in the corner jar with the chipped rim, each lid seated with a small stony clank that is this street's own version of the Abbey's compline bell. One by one, the day's offerings are being put to bed. The walls in here are worth a lamplit look before the shutters close. Painted panels behind the counter show the house specialties, a hanging sausage, a jug, 2 men dicing at a table, and around them the customers of years past have scratched their commentary, as customers here always do. Names mostly. A boast about a bet one, someone's opinion of someone's cousin, half rubbed out, presumably by the cousin. A counter like this is a guest book that pours. The last round is on the house tonight, a splash each for the fishermen and the fuller, because the day was good, and the proprietor keeps his books with a certain philosophy. Wine given at closing time, he holds, comes back as loyalty at opening time, and besides, jars sealed too full go sour. Both things are true. Neither is the real reason. The real reason is the hour and the lamplight, and the fact that closing a friendly shop alone is a small sadness. A shared last cup answers it entirely. Then the shutters, the great wooden panels that front every shop on this street, lifted one by one into their slots with the knock and grumble of old timber, each one closing off a little more lamplight, until only the door's gap glows. The fishermen roll off homeward, unhurried, navigating by fountains. The fuller says his same nightly goodbye, which is the single word tomorrow, and gets the same answer, which is tomorrow. And both men have exchanged this entire conversation nightly for 9 years, and would be quietly wounded to miss it. The proprietor stands a last moment in his doorway, cat now on his shoulder, surveying the street the way all keepers of small good places survey their patch at closing. Lamps going out along the block, one by one, fountain talking to itself at the corner, the mountain a shadow on the stars beyond the roof line, keeping its distance, keeping its counsel. He flicks the door latch down, and the corner is closed, and the night has the street now. Take your lamp close to any wall in this town, and you will discover the thing that makes Pompeii, of all the cities of its world, feel most alive. The walls talk. Every plastered surface within arm's reach is a conversation, painted, scratched, chalked, layered season over season. And walking a block here at night with a lamp is exactly like reading a town's unlocked diary. The loudest voices are the painted ones, the professional notices, done in confident red letters by men who charge by the line. Elections are the great subject. This whole town votes, loudly, annually, And every candidate's friends rent wall space the way they always have. So the walls ask you block after block to elect good men to fix the roads. And they name names, and they cite endorsements. The fruit sellers support him. The mule drivers support him. All the late drinkers, says one famous wall, support so-and-so, which was painted by his enemies and kept, presumably, because the whole street thought it was funny. Under the paint comes the scratched layer, the people's layer, and this is the one to read slowly. Names everywhere, the plain human noise of I exist. Gaius was here, Successus was here twice, in 2 different years. Lovers by the 100, initials paired inside little scratched wreaths at exactly shoulder height. Some crossed out and recarved with revisions. The whole street could follow like a serial. Someone up the block has written, in careful letters, I am amazed, wall, that you have not collapsed under the weight of so much scribbling. And that joke was old, they say, when this wall first heard it. The trades sign themselves in pictures, for the many who read pictures best. A painted goat over the dairy door, crossed paddles at the Rowers' Tavern by the harbor gate. The inn at the Crossroads flies a painted phoenix with the motto, the phoenix is happy, and so can you be, which has welcomed travelers for 2 generations and converted precisely none of them to better grammar. Over the school door, a painted boy reading. Over the surgery, the twined serpents. A stranger who cannot read a word could walk this town end to end and never once be lost. The walls speak every language, including none. There are the accounts, too, chalked where business happens. A tally of jars inside a shop doorway. A loan recorded, then marked paid. Both hands visible, the lenders tight, the payers jubilant. A landlord's notice of rooms to let from the 1st of July. Respectable persons only. And at child height, wobbling alphabets, whole practice rows of them, where the schoolmaster's pupils were set to letters on the cheapest writing surface in the world, the town itself. Poetry gets its share of plaster. Half the town, on the evidence, has a favorite line from the famous poets, quoted from memory, sometimes almost correctly. Arms and the man begins one doorway grandly and stops, the writer having presumably been called to supper, and mixed among the borrowed lines are homegrown ones, evening thoughts scratched by lamplight, and one of them, near the theater, has outlived almost everything else ever written in this town. Nothing can last forever, it says gently. The sun that shines has to set. What a moon just now shone, only lamplight and a passing hand, and a thought at the end of some warm evening, 2,000 years ago. Whoever scratched that line was not sad when they wrote it, or not only sad, you can tell somehow at this hour, with your own lamp throwing your own shadow on the same plaster. It is the kind of thing a person writes on a beautiful night, walking home a little slow, wanting the evening to know it had been noticed. The town is full of such lines, because the town is full of such evenings. This one, the one you are standing in, is exactly the kind they meant. Read one more layer before you move on. The smallest, the drawings. Ships in full sail, scratched by harbor boys who could not yet spell but knew rigging cold. Gladiators with their fan club's commentary. Portrait profiles of neighbors, some loving, some libelous. A peacock. A labyrinth with the old caption, here lives the Minotaur at the door, one suspects, of a formidable schoolmaster. And everywhere, dogs, horses, roosters, drawn with the fast, sure lines of people who lived all day among animals and loved them enough to doodle them for free. The lamps are going out along the block now, and the walls are keeping their voices down accordingly. By full dark they hold 2,000 conversations in trust till morning, every name safe, every wreathed set of initials, every alphabet. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars, above all this cheerful scribbled humanity. Towns write on their walls, it turns out, For the same reason travelers read tomb inscriptions kindly. Stop a moment. Say the name. Go well. The grandest doors still open at this hour belong to the baths, and they are closing in the grandest way, slowly, room by room, like a great warm animal lying down by stages. The public baths are this town's one shared palace. Marble and mosaic and vaulted ceilings for the price of a small coin, and the whole citizenry passes through them, the way the whole citizenry passes the fountains. By day they roar. At closing time, which is now, they murmur, and the murmur is one of the loveliest sounds the ancient world makes. The last bathers are in the warm hall, the long room kept at the temperature of contentment itself, and they are the connoisseurs of the day's end, the ones who time their visit for this exact hour, when the crowds are gone and the heat is deepest in the walls. An old magistrate floats in the warm pool with only his face above water, motionless, an island of retired authority. Two friends sit against the hot wall with towels over their heads, finishing an argument about racehorses begun. On the available evidence, around noon, nobody moves fast. Moving fast in the warm hall at closing time is a contradiction in terms. The heat here is architecture, not fire. Under every floor of these rooms runs a hollow space, and up every wall run hollow tiles, and through all of it breathes the warmth of one great furnace. So the building does not contain heat so much as consist of it. The floors are warm to the soul, the walls warm to the shoulder, the broad benches warm through the towel, and the deep masonry holds so much stored summer that the furnace, banked an hour ago, will keep this hall gentle until nearly dawn. Off the warm halls lies the exercise yard, open to the stars now, a colonnaded square of raked sand. All afternoon it rang with the ball games. This town takes far too seriously. The little handball against the court wall, the three-cornered throwing game, the big soft ball for the older men, all with their partisans and their standing arguments. The sand is swept and silent now. One forgotten ball sits by the colonnade, like a small moon come down to rest. The yard smells of dust and rosemary from the border beds. Somewhere in the portico, crickets have taken over the sports commentary for the night. There is a garden, too, between the yard and the street wall, because this town puts a garden anywhere a garden will fit. Plain trees, benches beneath, a long pool that mirrors the colonnade. It is where the bathers cool down on summer evenings, walking slow circuits, hair wet, talking quietly in the dusk. The benches are empty now, and the pool has gone to black glass, and the plane trees stand holding the stars in their upper branches. A public garden at night is a promise the town makes to itself about tomorrow. Nothing keeps a promise more gently than an empty bench. In the changing hall, the attendant is working down the row of niches, gathering forgotten property with the practiced sigh of his profession. One sandal, always one, never two. A strigil, the little curved scraper every bather owns, with good silver inlay, which he will keep behind the counter for the flustered owner, who will be back before breakfast. The attendant has kept this hall 18 years. He can tell you who is homesick by which niches went unused, and he checks on the old ones, quietly, by way of a nephew or a neighbor. When a regular's niche stays empty twice, the great cold plunge stands still now at the hall's end, its surface settling to black glass, the mosaic sea creatures on its floor swimming slowly back into visibility as the ripples die. Dolphins and octopus, a mustached sea god presiding. All day they shiver under churned water and shouting swimmers. At night they get the pool to themselves, and lie there in the lamplight, mid-leap, mid-curl, patient as the fountain faces, exactly as bright as the day the setter tapped them home. Somebody all this time has been below, Down a service stair behind the hot rooms, in a low brick underworld the bathers never see, works the furnace man. His kingdom is one long vaulted corridor, the great furnace at one end, the wood store at the other, and between them the dark crawl spaces under the floors, breathing heat. All day he has fed the fire, log by log, reading the rooms above through their pipes, the way the waterman reads his streets. Too hot, and the magistrates complain from the hot pool with surprising speed. Too cool, and they complain faster. His whole art is a steadiness nobody upstairs ever notices, which is, he would tell you, exactly how you know it is art. Now the day's firing is done, and the banking is his last office. The same craft, yet again, the town's one universal skill. Coals raked, ash drawn over, the iron door set to its overnight crack. He does it with a long rake, unhurried, squinting pleasantly into the glow. The mules delivered tomorrow's wood at dusk, and it stands stacked to the vault in neat cords, oak and olive prunings, a winter's warmth in waiting rooms of its own. He counts the stack with a glance, part of the closing ritual. Enough for the week. The week after is the wood seller's problem, and the wood seller is his cousin, so the problem is small. He takes his supper down here by choice, at a little table by the furnace door. Bread from the bakery, cheese, olives, watered wine, the standard supper of this whole coast, eaten in the best heated dining room in Pompeii. The bathers upstairs would not know his face. He knows their heels, their voices through the floor, their hours. He has warmed this town's evenings for 30 years from a brick corridor under its feet, and he is, by every account including his own, a contented man. The fire settles, the vaults tick. Below the palace of comfort, its quiet maker finishes his cup. Sounds at bath closing time, an inventory, the scrape of the bronze water heater being damped, sandals far off on marble unhurried, the plunge pool's filler pipe, reduced to a trickle that will whisper all night, a yawn magnificent, unashamed, echoing off the vault, from the direction of the magistrate, the clink of the attendant's ring of keys, which is a bunch of keys in every century, and under everything, structurally, the deep silence of thick warm walls, the sound of a building that has absorbed 10,000 conversations today and is digesting them. The bathers leave at last, clean, warm, and slow, wrapped to the ears, out into the surprise of the cool street, saying the things people say on bath steps in the dark, that it is later than they thought, that the stars are out, that tomorrow they should come earlier, knowing they will come at exactly this hour again, because this hour is the point. The attendant makes his last round with the lamp, banks the entrance brazier, and pulls the great door to, and all night the building will stand there full of warmth in the dark, floors gentle, walls kindly, sea creatures glinting under still water, a palace of comfort locked and dreaming. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars above its cooling roofs. Of all the doors that close tonight in Pompeii, this one closes on the day's best argument, made in marble, that ordinary people deserve palaces too, at least for an hour, at least until closing. Midway up the quiet street stands a pair of tall double doors, and behind them lies one of the beautiful private worlds this town builds so well. Come through the way stories come, without knocking. A short, dim passage, a lamp in a wall niche, and then the house opens above you into its first surprise. A hall with a rectangle of night sky set square in the middle of the roof, and below the opening, set in the floor, a shallow pool holding the exact same rectangle, star for star. This is the atrium, the formal heart of every fine house on this coast, and its clever roof is the house's own waterworks. The roof tilts inward from all four sides, so every drop of rain that falls on this house slides to the center and drops, musically, into the pool below, and from there to the cistern under the floor. In a storm, they say, the atrium plays like a fountain court. Tonight it is silent, and the pool lies black and still, doubling the stars, and one lamp in the corner doubles itself beside them like a moored boat. The floor around the pool is mosaic, small black and white stones in a pattern of waves, laid by hands that took a winter over it. The walls are painted the deep glowing red this town loves best, panels framed in painted architecture, with little floating figures at their centers, dancers, birds, a basket of figs rendered so honestly you can pick the ripe one. A house here wears its art the way it wears its roof, everywhere structurally, without embarrassment. Blank walls to this town suggest either poverty or mourning, and this house is enjoying neither. The household is settling in the rooms that open off the hall. Through one door, lamplight and the click of counters, the master of the house and his brother at a board game they have played nightly for 20 years, the score standing at approximately even, which both consider proof of the other's luck. Through another, softer light where the mistress is hearing the small daughter's account of the day, a narrative principally concerning a lizard. The day staff have gone to their rooms off the kitchen court. The house is folding inward, lamp by lamp toward its garden. Behind its showrooms, the house keeps its working heart, the kitchen court, and it is settling for the night in the universal way of kitchens. The cook has banked her charcoal brazier under its tile. The copper pots hang scoured in their descending row, largest to smallest, a bronze moon cycle on the wall. Supper is done and was a success. The fish done in the sweet-sour way the master's brother pretends not to prefer while accepting a third helping. The leftovers sit covered for the morning. A kitchen's day ends exactly like a farm's, with everything fed, everything covered, everything counted. Her helper, the kitchen boy, is already asleep on his cot in the warm corner by the oven wall, which is the best defended sleeping spot in the household, and his by conquest. The cook stays a moment longer, as cooks do, in the quiet of her cooled kingdom. She eats her own supper last, standing thinking about tomorrow's market, which fish, whose greens, whether the good melon man will be back. Then she banks the last coal, sets the water jar where morning will want it, and goes up. 10,000 kitchens tonight, one liturgy. The town runs on it, because the garden is the true heart, whatever the atrium claims. Walk through the second hall and there it is, enclosed on all four sides by a colonnade, open to the sky in the middle, the town's own private answer to the abbey cloister it will never know exists. A fig tree in the corner, black-leaved against the stars, rosemary and myrtle in low-clipped borders, oleander along the south wall, and down the center, a slender channel of water with a small bronze buoy standing in it, pouring an endless thin stream from a jar, the fountain the whole house falls asleep to. The colonnade walls are painted as garden too, so the real garden continues seamlessly into an impossible one. Painted thickets deeper than the wall they hang on, painted fountains answering the bronze buoy and birds everywhere, painted magpies and doves and a heron, mixed in among the roosting real ones so naturally that at this hour, by lamplight, the two populations are honestly hard to tell apart. Somewhere in the fig tree, a real blackbird mutters in its sleep. On the wall behind it, a painted one listens, mid-hop, and has listened for 30 years. The cicadas own the garden's upper air, that endless silver shimmer of sound, and under it the fountain threads its one cool note, and under that faint the sea. 3 sounds, stacked like the evening air on the harbor road, and every summer night this garden has ever had is made of them. The family will drift out here before bed, As they always do, the game abandoned at even. The lizard narrative concluded, and sit a while in the dark saying not much, because the garden says it better. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars, framed neatly in the north opening of the colonnade like one more painting, the largest in the house and the least regarded. The small daughter, carried to bed at last across the atrium, looks up at the square of stars in the roof, as she does every night, and the stars in the floor pool look back. A house with the sky led into the middle of it. Of all this town's beautiful arguments, that one might be the best. Before the last lamp goes out, this house, like every house in Pompeii tonight, gathers for a small moment at a small altar. And if you want to understand this town's heart, watch the next 2 minutes closely. In a niche off the atrium stands the lararium, the household shrine, a miniature temple front painted onto the wall with 2 little dancing figures, one at each side, and between them a painted serpent, the house's guardian spirit, curling toward a painted altar heaped with painted fruit. The little dancing figures are the lairs, the household gods, and no gods anywhere have ever been on easier terms with their people. They are not the great gods of the temples, the political ones with the marble and the festivals. They are small, local, and entirely domestic. The spirits of this house, this hearth, this family's luck, inherited with the walls, saluted in passing the way you nod to a grandmother's portrait. They ask little and receive it nightly. And the arrangement has suited both sides for as long as anyone's family can remember. The master of the house does the office, because that is his job, as much his job as the accounts. Nothing could be simpler. A pinch of incense on the little bronze altar in front of the niche, taken from the same worn box his father used. A splash of wine, a crumb of tonight's bread, the lamp lifted for a moment toward the 2 small dancers, and a few words, older than the family itself, said quickly and comfortably, the way you say a thing you mean but have said 10,000 times. Keep the house, keep everyone in it. That is the whole liturgy. The household stands about during this in attitudes of mild, genuine, unceremonious attention, which is the exact temperature of Roman household religion. The daughter leans against her mother, already half asleep. The old doorkeeper bows his head at the right moment out of 60 years of habit. The kitchen boy is present, technically. The cat walks through the middle of the proceedings, as the cat has every night, and this too is somehow part of the rite. The lairs, small dancing practical gods, would recognize every household that has ever gathered sleepily for any blessing anywhere. It is the most ordinary scene in the ancient world, and one of the tenderest. The painted serpent below deserves a word, because visitors always ask. He is the genius of the place, the spirit of the ground the house stands on, older than the family, older than the town, and he is painted always as coming toward the altar to receive his share, benevolent, unhurried, at home. Real snakes in the garden are, for this reason, treated with elaborate courtesy in this town. You never quite know. The painted one has kept the wall by the atrium for 4 generations, and the house, everyone would quietly point out, has done well the whole time. There are such niches in every house down this street, in the bakery, behind the wine counter, in the fuller's yard, in one-room apartments where the shrine is a shelf, and the lairs are 2 thumb-sized bronzes polished faceless with handling. At this hour, all over Pompeii, the same pinch of incense is going onto the same small flames. The same few words are being said over sleeping children. The whole town is quietly ensuring itself with its 10,000 tiny gods. Whatever one believes, the nightly sum of it is this: every house in this city goes to sleep on purpose, blessed by somebody, on behalf of everybody under its roof. The lamp is lowered. The incense thread climbs past the painted dancers, past the serpent, up into the dark of the niche, and the family goes to its beds down lamplit passages, the office done for the night. The little altar's coal breathes red a while in the dark atrium, twin to the banked ovens and the abbey's red lamp, and every kept fire this series of nights has shown you. Small flames, minded by families. It is and has always been most of what civilization is. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars in the atrium's roof square now. Under the painted gaze of two small dancing gods, the house of the garden sleeps. At the threshold of the house next door, worked into the floor mosaic where every visitor must cross it, a black dog strains against a red leash, teeth bared, ears flat, magnificent, and under him, in confident capitals, runs the town's most famous joke and most sincere warning at once. Cave Canum, beware of the dog. And from the darkness behind the door, right on cue, comes one low, entirely unhurried woof as the original checks in. Pompeii is a dog town, thoroughly and unapologetically. Every third house keeps one. The farms outside the walls keep packs, and the streets support a floating population of freelancers, whom the whole town feeds and nobody owns. The mosaic dogs at the doorways are the official ones, the employed, and their profession is ancient and honorable. A Roman house locks its valuables and posts its dog, and of the two systems, ask any burglar of any century which one he minds. The dog behind this particular door is called Ferox, which means fierce, and he is 11 years old, and fierce mainly in the mosaic. His actual duties, as he has redefined them over a decade, are as follows: to lie in the coolest spot in the entrance passage, which he found in his second summer and has held ever since, to escort the master to the door at dawn and receive his ear's worth of gratitude, to conduct, through the closed door, a nightly exchange of views with the dog across the street, and to bark, truly bark, perhaps 4 times a year, at which point the household agrees you listen, because Ferox does not spend his authority cheaply. The exchange of views is underway now, and it is one of the town's after-hours institutions. A dog by the harbor gate opens the question, something brief, philosophical. It is taken up along the shore, relayed up the main street dog by dog, each adding a clause, considered at the crossroads by the fountain freelancers, amended, and passed on uphill until it reaches the farms, where the big pack voices give it their full treatment and send it back down rewritten. The whole debate takes perhaps 4 minutes, crosses the entire town, involves every dog in it, and concludes, as it concludes nightly, with everyone satisfied and nothing resolved. Then silence, all at once town-wide, as if emotion had carried. The freelancers deserve their chapter of the town's affection, and they have it. The tortoiseshell cat may run the wine counter, but the counter's scraps run on an understanding with a gray street dog called by 3 different blocks, 3 different names, each block believing it named him. He makes his rounds at closing time, with the diplomatic timing of a career politician. He sits where he can be seen, but not tripped over. He receives his tribute with a dignity that suggests he is doing the establishment a favor. He is currently asleep in the bakery doorway, downwind of tomorrow's bread, which for a dog of his experience is simply professionalism. Why does a town love its dogs like this? Enough to set them in stone at the thresholds, enough to feed the ownerless ones on principle. The real answer is on the farms tonight, and up dark lanes, and behind shop doors all over town. It is the oldest working partnership there is. Long before this town, before the great gods and the aqueducts and the elections, There was a fire, and a human beside it, and a dog who chose to lie down at the edge of the light, and both parties slept better for it. Every dog at every door in Pompeii tonight is the direct heir of that treaty, still honoring it, still holding the edge of the light. Ferox at his door hears the town's silence settle and makes his last professional decision of the day, which is that it may be permitted. He turns his circle 3 times, in the manner of his kind since before towns existed. He settles against the door with his back to the wood and his nose toward the street, the correct configuration, guarding both directions at once, asleep in 20 breaths. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars above the doorway mosaic. Beware of the dog, says the floor to nobody all night. Sleep, says the dog by example, and the whole street, one household at a time, is taking his advice. Down in the southwest of town, where the land steps toward the sea, Pompeii keeps its entertainments. 2 theaters nested side by side, a great open one for the crowds and a small roofed one for music. And tonight the big house had a show. It ended an hour ago. What is left in the quarter now is the particular sweet emptiness of a place where 1,000 people were recently delighted, which is an atmosphere all its own, and worth walking through slowly. The great theater stands open to the night, its half-circle of stone seats climbing the natural slope, still holding the day's warmth, and the crowds wander in the way stories may. The stage is bare, the scenery doors shut, and the house is silent in the way a shell is silent, holding the shape of sound. On the top row, where the cheap places are and the view is best, somebody has left a cushion, which the sweeper will find at dawn and add to the little museum of forgotten cushions in his alcove. The moon is coming up over the stage wall, taking its own turn on the boards to an empty house. It is performing, frankly, rather well. It was comedy tonight. The old favorites, the clever slave and the pompous master and the young couple sorted out in the last scene, plays this audience knows the way the abbey knew its psalms, which is the point. Nobody here comes to be surprised. They come to be confirmed, to mouth the famous lines along with the actors, to hoot at the villain the moment his mask clears the door, to be, for 3 hours, one single laughing animal 1,000 heads long. You could hear tonight's performance from the harbor, they say. On the big laughs, you could hear it from the boats. Behind the stage, in the colonnaded court where the audience strolls at intermissions, the company is at supper around a props basket, still half in costume, running the nights reckoning the way all theater people always have. Which scenes landed, whose timing dragged in the second act, a question generating warm testimony from all sides. The leading man, mask pushed up on his head like a second sleeping face, is sharing his supper with the theater cat, who attends every performance from the top of the scenery wall and is the only critic whose reviews the company universally respects. Her verdict tonight was to stay through both halves. High praise. The small theater next door, the roofed one, held music this evening, a lyre player of some traveling reputation, and the difference in the after atmosphere is instructive. The comedy house feels emptied of laughter. The music house feels as if the music has merely settled, soaked down into the cedar of the roof and the stone of the floor, the way rain soaks into ground. A boy is sweeping it by lamplight unhurried, and he is humming. And what he is humming is what everyone hums tonight, the tune the lyre man played third, the one the whole room went home carrying. By tomorrow, the fountain queue will have it. By the day after, the fullers will be treading laundry to it. That is how hits worked, before anything was written down. A town simply caught a tune like weather. Past the theaters lies the athletes' quarter, and its famous residents are asleep with the discipline of professionals in training. The town follows its arena stars the way it follows the ball games, loudly, in paint. Their names are on walls all over town, with their win tallies and their fan club's boasts, and the walls reply to each other, "My man against your man, any festival you like." The men themselves this hour are simply sleeping workmen. Their gear is racked and oiled. Their trainer, an old veteran with a list where his ankle should bend, sits up late by the yard lamp, planning diets. The wall paint promises thunder. The barracks at midnight promises porridge, early bells and rest. Every spectacle, seen from behind, is a working household. Before the company sleeps, the masks go to bed first, and it is a small ceremony worth watching from the doorway. The wardrobe room behind the stage is shelved like the lamp maker's shop, and on the shelves, face out, live the company's other selves. The pompous master with his knotted brows, the clever slave, grinning his permanent grin, the young lovers, the cook, the boastful soldier, the old woman who is always played by the second comedian and always steals the scene. Linen and cork and paint, each one is worth a month's wages, and older than some of the actors who wear them. The dresser hangs tonight's masks on their pegs and checks the paint for chips by lamplight. Then the cloth goes over the row against the dust. The entire cast of human comedy tucked in. Actors are travelers, and this company has played every town on the bay and some beyond it. But they keep returning here, and the leading man will tell you why over the last of the supper wine. The audience, he says, this town laughs from the feet up. Other towns applaud what they are told is good. This one hoots, weeps, warns the hero aloud about the villain behind him, and once famously passed bread up onto the stage because a starving orphan scene was done too well. No player forgets a town like that. The road is long and the pay is arguable, but somewhere there is always a Pompeii, and it is worth the walking. Theater people are night people, and their quarter keeps their hours. Lamps burn late in the lodgings along the back street, and through open windows come the sounds of the profession at rest. A low run of lyre scales, a line of dialogue tried 3 ways, laughter, the click of dice. Tomorrow they play the funny one about the twins. Tonight they are what they are every night after curtain, working people with sore feet and a good story, dining late in a town that loves them. You climb back up the theater's stone, rows one last time to the top, because the view from the cheap seats is the true one. The whole quarter below, moon on the colonnade, lamp in the sweeping boy's window, the bay silvering beyond the roofs, and behind everything, upstage of the whole sleeping town, the mountain, doing what it does in this story, which is nothing. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars, the oldest piece of scenery in the district, and the least regarded, and the play goes on quietly beneath it, the long-running one, the town itself. At the corner of the forum, behind doors big enough for wagons, stands the town's stomach, the mausoleum, the covered market hall, and at this hour it is doing the thing that all great markets do at night, which is to be enormous, and empty, and faintly fragrant, and dream of itself at noon. The moon comes in through the high windows in long slants, and lies across the worn floor in stripes, and the hall's 12-sided fountain basin at the center holds one bright coin of it. By day this room is the loudest indoors in Pompeii. Fishmongers at the marble slabs by the fountain, where the water keeps the catch cool and carries the rinsing away. Butchers along the north wall, greengrocers heaped to the columns, the fruit women whose stalls scent the whole East End, spice sellers whose little folded papers cost more than the fish. Everything the bay and the plain and the mountain slopes produce passes across these counters between dawn and noon. Weighed on scales, the market officers check with their stamped bronze measures. Because this town, whatever else it jokes about, does not joke about weights. Now the slabs are scrubbed and the scales are hooked up on their pegs, swinging just faintly in the air from the high windows. Tick, tick, like the abbey's clock counting nothing. The day's last smells are fading in layers. Fish gone first with the sluicing, then greens, then the stubborn sweet ghosts, fig and melon and crushed grape, which will still be here at dawn, folded into the stone. A market hall never smells of nothing. It smells at night of everything at one remove, like a summer remembered rather than happening. The bay's whole bestiary crossed these slabs today, and will again at dawn, tunny in season, silver blue and serious, bream and mullet by the basket, octopus, which the fishmongers handle like difficult relatives, sea urchins in their purses of spikes. A delicacy this coast opens with a spoon and strong opinions, and oysters, the aristocrats, fattened in the famous farmed beds up the coast and driven down in barrels of seawater, priced accordingly, discussed reverently. The town eats its bay daily, knows it by first names, and the bay, generous beyond deserving, has never yet run short. The cleanup crew has long finished, but their work sits visible everywhere, and it is the same work you have watched all night across this town, the putting to bed. Counters rinsed and gleaming dully, baskets stacked in towers, sawdust swept into its corner mountain, ready to spread fresh at dawn. The drains sluiced through to the sea channel, running clean. A market's honor is its morning smell, the fish sellers say, and its morning smell is decided the night before. And this hall's honor on tonight's evidence is in excellent standing. The night staff is entirely feline and entirely on duty. The market cats of Pompeii are a dynasty, sleek, propertied, and organized, each with a beat, the fish corner being hereditary and currently held by a broad gray matriarch of formidable reputation. They flow along the moonlit counters now, checking the night's small economy, and the mice of the hall, who also have their dynasties, conduct their business in the walls with the discipline of long coexistence. It is the scriptorium's treaty again, struck in another country, in another century, in the same eternal terms. The east end of the hall belongs to the far world, and even asleep it smells of distance. The spice seller's corner. Their stalls are locked chests, not open counters, and with reason, for a handful from the wrong jar here is worth a fisherman's week. Pepper from beyond two seas, cinnamon that has changed hands, they say, 7 times between its tree and this counter, each hand adding a story and a margin. Frankincense for the altars, saffron for the kitchens of exactly 4 households in this town, and everyone knows which 4. The chests are banded, and the bands are polished with proud handling. A locked box that smells this good through the wood, the porter's joke, hardly needs advertising. Follow those smells backward, and the little corner opens onto the whole map. The pepper came up the great sea in the Eastern trader now rocking at the harbor mooring, and before that by riverboat, and before that by caravan, and before that in the hold of ships whose home ports no one in Pompeii could point to. A town of 10,000 on a small bay, and its market corner reaches farther than its magistrates ever will. Nobody here finds this remarkable. The wide world arrives weekly, is weighed on the check scales, is priced, is grumbled at, is bought. Empires are many things, at street level at this counter. An empire is mostly the reliable arrival of pepper. The spice men themselves are the market's aristocracy and its best listeners. Men who trade in small heavy values learn patience and faces. Their corner by day is where the hall's news settles and gets sifted. Ship arrivals, vintage forecasts, betrothals, the eternal melon dispute. By night their chests keep the hall's richest silence. The gray matriarch does not patrol the spice corner. She sneezed there once, as a young cat with her whole body, and has held the entire quarter under suspicion ever since. Even dynasties have their one defeat. In the little office by the great doors hang the market's records, wax tablets on pegs, the day's prices, the stall fees. A dispute about a melon weight adjourned till morning with both parties' marks. And on the doorpost outside, at exactly hand height, is the polished patch where 5 generations of sellers have touched the little bronze plaque of the market's guardian gods for luck, coming and going, until the figures have worn to a golden blur. The blur, the whole market would tell you, works fine. Luck does not require detail. Stand at the fountain basin a last moment in the moon's coin of light, and hear the hall around you, holding its huge cool breath. Tomorrow at dawn, the boats will land the night's catch and the carts will roll in from the plain, and this room will fill like a tide pool. Voices and silver fish and figs by the thousand. The whole roaring, generous stomach of the town. It has done this every day beyond memory, and it is ready to do it every day forever. Great rooms make that promise at night, silently, and mean it. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars above the high windows. The scales swing their tiny arcs. The gray matriarch takes her post on the fish slab, paws folded, moon-eyed, and the market hall sleeps its light, fragrant, well-earned sleep around her. Up the hill a block behind a modest front works the establishment that keeps this town looking respectable. And if the bakery is the best-smelling business on the street, this one is, honestly, the most heroic. The Fulanica, the Fullers, the laundry and cloth finishing works, where every toga in the quarter comes to be washed, whitened, and pressed, and where the trade's methods have been, since time out of mind, vigorous. The yard at night is a small landscape of basins, the treading vats in their row along the wall, each big enough for a man to stand in, because that is precisely how the washing is done. The fuller's boys tread the cloth barefoot, hours a day, stamping and turning in the vats like vintners at grapes, and the yard by day rings with their treading songs, work tunes with a beat you could march to, which is the whole point of them. Tonight the vats stand rinsed and empty, and the yard holds only the clean, wet smell of stone and soap plants, and the ghosts of songs. The cloth dries on the roof terrace, and this is the sight worth the climb. Lines and lines of it in the moonlight, tunics and togas and bed linens, all luminous, all stirring together in the small night breeze off the bay, like the sails of a very calm fleet. White cloth in moonlight has a light of its own, borrowed and improved, and a laundry roof on a clear night is quietly one of the loveliest places in any Roman town. The Fuller's family knows it, and eats supper up here all summer among the sails. Below, in the pressing room, the great screw press stands loaded overnight, tomorrow's finished togas folded between its boards, being persuaded flat by 2 enormous wooden screws. The press is the shop's pride, and its patriarch, older than the current fuller, carved with the name of his grandfather, and it does its best work unattended, in the dark, like the oven, like every patient machine you have met tonight. It works by simply continuing to insist. The fuller himself keeps the books late by lamplight, because cloth is credit in this town, and half, the quarter, is in his ledgers. So many tunics owed against the vintage. The magistrate's household account, settled quarterly, in coin and cordiality. The theater's costumes, done at friendly rates for free seats, an arrangement now in its 2nd generation, and considered by both parties the best contract in Pompeii. Laundry looks humble from the street. From the ledger side, it is a web of trust with the whole town caught in it, gently. And the Guild of Fullers, it should be said, is a power in the land. They fund elections, They march in the festivals behind their own banner. Their patron goddess gets a fine altar and knows why. On the walls of this very yard, the boys have scratched their treading tallies and their names, and in one corner, a caricature of the owl of the goddess treading a tiny vat of its own, wings lifted, exactly like a fuller's boy at work. The goddess, all evidence suggests, took it well. Trades that laugh at themselves last. The fuller closes the ledger, rubs his eyes, and makes his last round in the manner of all the closers of shops you have walked with tonight. Vats rinsed, press loaded and creaking its slow creak, roof lines secure, the fleet of moonlit sails riding easy at anchor. His son's asleep, feet clean, pink, and honorably tired. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars above the drying lines, and beneath them the fuller's yard settles, smelling of soap and stone and moonlight, which, at this address, is the smell of a day's work brought entirely home. Somebody, it stands to reason, must make the 10,000 small flames of this town, or rather the 10,000 small clay boats that carry them, and he lives up a side street near the potter's quarter, and his workshop at night is one of the quiet wonders of Pompeii. The lamp maker, his front room is shelves floor to ceiling, and every shelf is lamps, ranked nose to tail like sardines, and every lamp is a small sleeping flame waiting to happen. The lamp of this world is a masterpiece of the obvious, a covered clay saucer the size of your palm, a hole on top for oil, a spout at the front for the wick done, filled with olive oil. The fuel this coast grows on trees. It burns the evening long for the price of nearly nothing, and it is the light by which this entire civilization reads, sups, sows, prays, argues, and finds the stairs. Palaces burn them by the hundred, in bronze candelabra. The kitchen boy burns one on a shelf. It is the same flame, the great leveler. One soft, warm, thumb-sized light, everywhere for everyone. The maker turns them on his wheel by the hundred, 2 molds and a practiced thumb. But the tops are where his heart is, because the top of a lamp is a canvas, and this is why people linger at his shelf, pressed into the clay above the oil hole, a whole little world. Dolphins, racing chariots, a rooster mid-crow, ships under sail, gladiators, gods, a hare among vines, the theater's comic mask, lovers, a lighthouse, a dog that is unmistakably a portrait of the gray freelancer from the bakery doorway. Every house in Pompeii chooses its small flames picture, and the choosing, the maker will tell you, reveals more than the horoscope. He is at the kiln in the back court now, doing the potter's evening office you already know from a village on a river far from here and long before, though he could not know that. The load inside is cooling on its own slow schedule. Tomorrow's lamps, still too hot to touch, ticking faintly as they shrink into their final selves. He reads the kiln's warmth with a palm at a distance, nods, and lets it be. Fire makes the lamps that make the little fires. The trade contemplates itself nightly and finds the arrangement sound. His own house, naturally, is lit like a shrine. Seconds and experiments burning in every niche. Lamps with 2 spouts and 3. A grand old 12-flame ring hanging over the supper table that he made for a commission that fell through and could never bring himself to sell. His wife has ceased to comment. His small son is permitted, as the apprenticeship of the family, to fill and light the evening lamps, and does it with his tongue between his teeth, exactly like a girl winding thread in a longhouse, exactly like every child ever trusted with the household's small fire, anywhere. Think of the shelf in the dark front room as you leave, the ranked hundreds of them, spouts forward, waiting. Within the month they will be scattered across the whole map of the town's evenings, one lighting a physician's midnight page, one a sailor's supper, one a bride's first hearth, one the wine counter's last hour, one held up to a wall by someone reading the scratched line about the sun that has to set. Every lamp in the shop will find its own particular dark to be kind to. That is the trade. He makes company in clay 100 at a time. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars above the kiln's warm court. The lamp maker banks his big fire, checks his small ones, and goes up to bed by the light of his own bestseller, a plain lamp dolphin top, the one he always reaches for, because the plain ones, he says, burn just as bright and listen better. The shelf sleeps in ranks below him, 10,000 evenings boxed and patient, ready to be lit. Slip out through the northern gate, past the nodding watchman we will meet properly later, and walk 10 minutes up the rising lanes, because the last of tonight's Pompeii is not in Pompeii at all. It is on the mountain's lower slopes in the Vineyards, where the town's other harvest is hanging dark and heavy under the stars, 3 weeks from the picking, and sweetening by the night. The vines climb the volcanic soil in long-combed rows, trained up chestnut stakes and strung head-high, so that walking the lanes between them at night is walking a low, rustling, grape-scented tunnel under the open sky. The soil here is the secret the whole coast knows. Black, crumbling, absurdly generous, it grows wine the town ships as far as its fish sauce, and the growers will tell you, leaning on the gate of the very mountain that made the soil, that there is no better ground for vines in the world. They are, as it happens, right. The grapes at this hour are doing their finest work, and doing it exactly like everything else you have watched tonight, silently in the dark, unattended. All day they take in sun, all night they turn it patiently into sugar, squeeze one from a rose end, a grower's privilege extended to stories, and it is warm still at the skin, cool at the heart, and nearly not quite ready, the sweetness standing right behind a last green edge like a guest behind a door. 3 weeks. The whole slope is counting, because the vintage, when it comes, is the year's great festival out here, and the anticipation of it is already in the night air like the sugar in the grapes. The treading vats are being seasoned in the farmyards. The press house has new rope. Extra hands are spoken for. Town cousins and harbor men, and the same faces as every year. The picking is long, hard, honest work, and the evenings after it are the best of the calendar, new must and old songs, the whole slope eating at long tables in the dusk. Half the marriages in the district, the saying goes, are arranged by the vintage and blamed on it. At the slope's foot in the farmyard, the wine itself is sleeping. The cellar here is not a cellar but a court, open to the sky, and set into its floor in ranks are the great clay jars, buried to their shoulders in the cool earth. Last year's vintage is down there now, seasoning in the dark below the ground that grew it. The farm tests it monthly, a dipper on a long reed, a sniff, a taste, a nod. It is coming along, the nod says. Wine and grapes, one below ground and one above, both quietly working the same slope, both unhurried. The whole hillside is one patient calendar of sweetness. Between the vine rows and the town wall stand the olives, and they deserve their moment, because they are the elders here. The vineyard is generations old. The olive terraces are older than anyone's arithmetic. Gray-silver trees with trunks gone to twisted rope, each one holding its patch of hillside like a grandparent holding a chair. Vines are replanted, argued over fashionable. Olives are simply inherited. A man who plants an olive tree, the growers say, is cooking for his grandchildren. And the trees on this slope were somebody's such cooking long ago, and here they still stand, paying it out. At night, the olive terraces are the quietest ground outside the walls. The leaves take the starlight on their silver sides and give a little of it back. So a grove at night is never fully dark. It glimmers faintly, like water thinking. The fruit is hard and green yet, months behind the grapes on its own unhurried calendar. Grapes are the slope's excitement. Olives are its patience. Oil for the lamps, oil for the kitchens, oil for the bathers' flasks. The one liquid this whole world runs on more faithfully than wine. The grove makes it slowly in the dark by simply standing there. It is the most productive stillness in Campania. Under the oldest tree, the one with the hollow a child can stand in, the ground is worn bare in a circle. Pickers eat their bread here at every harvest, in every generation. The shade is the best, and their parents did the same. Initials are in the bark, grown up and stretched wide with the trees slow growing. Some of them are a handspan tall now, and 80 years old. The tree carries them without comment. It has room and time and no other appointments. The farm's cat patrols the jar court by night, walking the rims of the buried jars like a bridge inspector. Because where there is grain for the mules, there are mice with ambitions. She is small, black, and severe. The grower calls her the tax collector. Nothing in the yard moves without her assessment, and nothing has for 6 years. The watchman of the vines is out tonight, an old man with a lamp and a dog, walking his slow rounds against the foxes and the badgers and the boys, all 3 of whom he has known personally in their generations for 50 years. His hut stands at the row's end with a gourd of last year's wine, and a view of the whole slope down to the town's small scattered lights and the black bay beyond. He has slept up here every harvest watch of his life. Best bedroom in Campania, he says, and no one who has stood here at night has ever argued the point. And it must be said, because you are standing on it. The mountain from here is not a shadow on the horizon. It is the ground itself, the warm dark slope under the vines, the giver of the soil, the maker of the wine, the oldest and largest and quietest neighbor the town has. The vines grow up its very sides like children climbing a sleeping grandfather, and it holds them all, as it holds the watchman's hut and the singing farmyards and the whole sweetening harvest, with the perfect stillness of long habit. Tonight, as every night in anyone's memory, it is only the shape the stars go out behind. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars. Leave it so, and walk back down with the grape smell in your clothes. Down at the river mouth below the town, where the day began for you, the harbor is at anchor for the night, and a harbor asleep is a sight every inlander should be issued once in a lifetime. The boats ride their moorings in the black water, masts bare, hulls nodding just perceptibly on the smallest of swells, and every gentle collision of wood and rope and water makes its own small sound, so that the whole basin clicks and creaks and sighs to itself, all night, like a stable of large wooden animals dreaming. The fleet is the town's whole reach made visible. Fat-bellied coasters that run wine and fish sauce up to the great ports, fishing boats by the dozen, nets black on the yards, a deep-sea trader from the east, in with cloth and pepper and a crew of 4 languages. Its lamp burns late at the masthead, while the master finishes his manifests, and the ferry skiffs and oyster boats, and one gaudy little pleasure craft belonging to a magistrate, about which the fishermen have opinions. Every hull has its home port carved at the stern. Reading them by lamplight is reading the map of this whole sea. The fish sauce must have its word, since half these hulls smell of it and half the town is paid from it. Garum, the famous ferment of this coast, fish and salt and patience in vats by the shore, drawn off amber and bottled like wealth, which it is. The connoisseurs of 2 continents argue vintages of it. Fortunes here are made of it. The finest houses in town are floored with its profits, and its makers cheerfully endure every joke about the smell, all the way to the bank. The vats work through the night down the shore, unattended, ripening. The harvest of the sea going the way of the grapes on the slope, slowly in the dark, toward the table. The moon is on the water now, laid out in a long broken path from the pier to the dark of the open bay. Every small swell takes a piece of it and hands it on. The moored hulls ride through the bright path and out of it, silver a moment, then shadow, then silver again all night to no audience. A harbor by moonlight does more quiet, unregarded beauty per hour than any painted wall in town. The sailors who see it nightly would shrug. The shrug is affection. You do not remark on the face of an old friend. Along the quay, the night's small society is at its stations. The harbor watchman in his hut, lamp low, feet up on a coil of rope, listening to the water the way the abbey porter listened to the valley. Two sailors from the eastern trader sit on the seawall with a jug, watching their own masthead light. They talk home ports quietly, in the mixed pidgin of the sea that every harbor from here to the sunrise understands. And the harbor cat holds her bollard, the saltiest of her town-wide dynasty. She surveys the dark water with the fixed conviction of her kind that fish owe her a personal debt. Along the shore past the mooring stands the shipwright's yard, and in it, up on stocks, the yard's current patient, a fishing boat half-planked, ribs bare to the stars at the stern, smelling of adze-cut pine and tar and fresh shavings. Boats are born slowly here, plank by steamed plank, the way books were born in that snow-bound writing room far to the north of this story. The shipwright's tools hang in the open shed, each on its nail, edges bright. By the waterline lie the patience of past years, hulls he built or healed, everyone still working the bay. He knows them at any distance by their sit on the water, the way a shepherd knows sheep. The half-built one on the stocks will join them by the vintage. Tonight it dreams its wooden dream of water it has never touched. Along the seawall, where the day's nets hang drying on their long rail, the mending bench sits empty now. But it is the harbor's true senate and should be introduced. Every afternoon the older fishermen hold it, needles and twine in hand, working the day's tears while the day's news works them. Net mending is the perfect trade for talk. The hands know the work so completely that the mind is entirely free, and the bench faces the water, so no arriving boat, cargo, or scandal escapes review. Everything this harbor has ever decided, informally, was decided on that bench. The magistrates hold office. The bench holds opinions, which last longer. The nets themselves, hanging in the dark, are worth a look on your way past. Each one is years of mending, knot on knot, no two repairs alike. So a fisherman can read a net the way the abbey's librarian read margins. This tier was the reef by the point. This great rewoven panel was the famous tunny of 4 seasons ago, discussed to this day. A net is the sea's diary, kept in string. When one is finally past mending, it is not thrown out. It goes to the Vineyards for bird cover, or to the children for a swing, or over a garden arbor. So the whole town, inland to the walls, is quietly veined with retired nets, still catching things. Shade grapes, swallows shadows afternoons. The lighthouse of this little port is no wonder of the world, just an iron fire basket on a stone pier head, kept by an old man in a hut who feeds it driftwood through the dark hours. But it burns every night faithfully. And from the water it is the town, the first and last of Pompeii a sailor sees, and men out on the Black Bay right now are steering their last mile home on it. His pay is small and his fame is nothing, and yet no lamp you have met all night, Not the atriums, not the altars, not the red lamp over the abbey's dark church in that other, colder story, does more nightly good than his basket of burning driftwood. Some men keep bees, some keep gates. This one keeps the edge of the sea lit, and sleeps in the day, and wants no other work. Stand at the pierhead beside his fire a while. The warm side, sea in front and town behind. The water breathes, the boats click and sigh. Up the hill, the town's last windows are going dark in ones and twos, and the great shape of the mountain stands over it all, only a shadow on the stars, holding still as it does, as it always has. The lighthouse keeper feeds his basket another branch and settles back, and the sparks go up and out over the water, brief small stars among the fixed ones, the town's good night, sent seaward, on the offhand chance anyone is out there to catch it. Back up at the northern gate, the town's night watch is keeping its vigil, and it is a vigil in the loosest, most human sense of the word. 2 men a brazier, a bench worn to the shape of watchmen, and a dice cup that is technically against the regulations and has been in nightly use at this post. The regulations notwithstanding, since before either man was born, Pompeii's gates stand open most nights, in the way of confident towns in a long peace. The watch is not against armies. It is against fire, first and always, fire being the true wolf of every ancient town, and after fire, against mishap in general, the runaway mule, the drunk in the fountain, the traveler arriving lost after dark and needing pointing toward a bed. The watchmen are less soldiers than the town's night-uncles, and they know their quarter the way the abbey's porter knew his walls, latch by latch, voice by voice. Their round goes out on the hour, one walking, one keeping the gate, turn and turn. The walker takes the lamp and the quarters pulse together, down the main street to the Forum, past the bakery, warm and ticking, a glance up the Fuller's Lane. The wine counter's latch tried in passing, purely from habit, the way hands trust doors. He reads the town by its lights, and smells the way the farmer read his yard. Bread rising here, banked charcoal there, all the small fires of the town in their proper places, doing their proper work, nothing loose, nothing wrong. At the gate, meanwhile, the night's small traffic, a farm cart in early for the market, waved through with a yawn and a joke about melons that both parties have exchanged in rotation for years. A sailor walking up from the harbor with his kit pointed to the clean lodging house and warned off the other one, standard service. And once late, a boy from an outlying farm sent running for the physician is given a lamp, an escort, and the watchman's own directions, that being the watch's realist work, and done, when it comes, with no jokes at all and remarkable speed. The brazier earns its keep in more ways than warmth. On its grill, most nights from the vintage to spring, chestnuts from the mountain woods roast in a slow rotation. The senior watchman manages them with tongs and doctrine. The doctrine holds that a chestnut is ready when it sings, a small hiss of steam at the split, and not 1 moment before. Half the night visitors to this gate over the years have been handed a hot chestnut on arrival. Sailors, carters, the physician coming home late, tossed hand to hand, blown on, eaten in the lamplight. It is the toll of the north gate, paid in reverse. Nobody remembers when it started. Gates develop customs the way benches develop hollows. Between rounds, the bench, the brazier, and the talk of men who have shared 1,000 quiet nights. The vintage, and whose slope is earliest this year. The magistrate's pleasure boat, treated harshly. Sons weather the eternal dice. Their talk is the town's talk, 1 octave lower and 1 hour later, and it runs down as the night deepens, the pauses stretching, the brazier settling, until they are mostly 2 men in comfortable silence, Watching a street they know is safe grows safer. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars beyond the gate arch, and the road runs out beneath it, pale and empty, toward the sleeping farms. The walker comes back from his round with nothing to report, which is the whole aim of the profession, and says so in the traditional form. One word: quiet. The dice cup comes out. The night watch of Pompeii, in the fullest confidence of its town, plays on for beans. For the whole town at one look, climb the rampart stair by the gate, as the watchman lets steady visitors do, and walk out along the old wall's top. The fortifications are elderly and half-retired, gardens leaning on them from inside, but the walk still runs the town's whole northern shoulder, and from up here, under the full sky, Pompeii at night is laid out at your feet like a lamplit model of itself. Roofs first, an unbroken quilt of them, terracotta gone gray-silver under the stars, sloping and meeting and parting around the dark wells of 1,000 atrium openings and garden courts, so that the town from above is not a solid thing, but a sponge of held nights, every house cupping its own private piece of sky. Here and there a court glows faintly amber from some late lamp, and the light comes up out of the roof hole like warmth from a banked fire. The streets read as dark seems through the quilt, and along them the night's map of small lights. The corner shrines flames at their crossroads, faithful as the fountains beside them. The bakery blocks warm breath, visible as a shimmer over its roofs. Down the long slope, the theater's colonnade moon-striped. Farther, the forum's temple porches, and the masthead lamp in the harbor, and the pier-head fire. And beyond that nothing, the flat black generous nothing of the sea at night, with one late fishing boat's spark crawling home across it. Listen from up here, and the town has exactly 3 sounds left. The fountains, all of them at once, blended by distance into one continuous silver breathing. The sound Pompeii makes when it makes no other sound. The cicadas, the same shimmer an octave higher from every garden. And underneath both, the sea, keeping the slow count it was keeping before the town, before the vines, before anything here had a name. 3 sounds stacked steady. You could sleep standing up, leaning on this parapet. People certainly have. 10 or 12,000 people are asleep under that quilt of roofs right now. The baker's daughter, the fuller's pink-footed boys, the magistrate still faintly buoyant from the warm pool, the lamp-maker's son, the watchman's wife, the theater company, the matriarch of the market cats, every one of them at anchor in the same night, riding it the way the boats ride the basin below, small motions, safe moorings. From the wall you can hold them all in one look, the way the abbey's tower held its valley. And the feeling is the same in every century and every country. A town asleep is a town at its most beloved. You see it whole, and it cannot see you, and it trusts the night. And the night tonight deserves it. The sky above the parapet is working too, if you tip your head back and give it a minute. This is a sailor's coast, and the stars here are furniture, named, used, relied on. The sailors steer by the 2 bears, and the pole they circle. The farmers read the seasons in the rising and setting of the cluster they call the Little Sisters, whose appearance at dawn says harvest, and whose evening setting says plow. The great road of milky light across the middle of the sky has a dozen names in the harbor's dozen languages, and every one of them means something like the river, or the road, or the way home. Nobody up at this hour on this coast is ever entirely lost, or entirely alone. The whole roof of the world is annotated. Shooting stars are good luck here, mostly, opinions varying by trade. The fishermen wish on them. The farmers count them toward the weather. The old watchman below, who has seen more night sky than any astronomer, holds that they are best simply watched, wishes being a tax on a free pleasure. On a clear August night from this wall, you may see a dozen. The town sleeps through them all, and the sky writes its brief, bright lines anyway. Unread, unbothered, the way the fountains run for empty streets. The night does not perform for an audience. It simply keeps its own generous accounts. And over it all northward, the mountain, the great dark constant, vineyards on its knees, stars on its shoulder. From this parapet, it is exactly what it has been all evening and all of living memory. The calmest thing in the landscape. The shape the town's eye slides past on its way to the weather. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars. Say it once more up here, with the whole sleeping town between you and it. And then come down the stair, because the night is deepening, and there are dreams below worth visiting. What a sleeping Roman town dreams, no historian will ever recover, but a story that has walked its streets all evening may guess, gently, house by house, the way we have guessed before under other roofs in other centuries. So, softly, down the lamplit lanes of it, one sleeper at a time. The baker dreams of rising, of course, but grandly. In the dream, his ovens are the size of the baths, and the loaves come out perfect by the hundred, wheels of gold. And the queue at his counter goes down the street and around the fountain, and includes, to his deep unsurprise, the magistrate, waiting his turn like anyone. The stamp on every loaf reads his name. He will wake before the stars fade and bake. In reality, 40. The dream keeps the scale. He keeps the standard. His daughter dreams of the gray donkey, who in the dream can speak, and has, it turns out, been able to speak all along, and chose her to tell first. What he says is sensible and kind, exactly in his character, mostly concerning hay, and the ears, and how well she scratches them. She will remember none of it and all of it. Children's dreams of animals are the oldest dreams there are, older than towns, and the best kept. The fuller dreams in white, acres of clean cloth in sunlight, billowing, no vats, no treading. The whole year's laundry somehow already done and drying on lines that stretch over the vineyards to the sea. His sons run between the sheets playing the hiding game they have actually outgrown. Small again in the dream, shrieking with laughter he can hear from the roof. He counts nothing in this dream. It is his only accounting-free country, and he visits nightly. The lyre player, lodged behind the small theater, dreams the tune he has been hunting for a month. Entire, perfect, 8 bars further than he has ever caught it awake. He knows, even asleep, that he is dreaming, and does the musician's ancient desperate trick, playing it over and over, nailing it down. He will wake with 3 notes of it, and a feeling like a door closing. Out of exactly such 3-note salvages, they say, half the music of the world has been built. The old magistrate dreams of the warm pool, which is honest of him. The watchman at the gate, chin on chest between rounds, dreams the town's map with all its lamps lit and himself walking it, ageless, greeted by name at every corner, which is not far from his actual life. And he knows it, and the knowing follows him into the dream and warms it. The harbor cat dreams of a personal fish, the size of the pleasure boat. Ferox against his door dreams one low woof, and delivers it, aloud in the real hallway at nothing. Duty, even asleep. The shipwright dreams of the half-built boat on the stocks, finished, and taking her first water. In the dream, the whole harbor turns out, which they will in fact do, and she goes down the greased ways and sits the sea exactly right. Not a hand's breadth of lean, and the dream lets him watch it twice. Every boat he has ever launched attends, somehow, riding in a great circle like grandchildren at a christening. He wakes early these weeks, launch month sleep, and lies listening to the gulls planning planks. The boat, on her stocks under the stars, goes on dreaming her half of it. The cook in the house of the garden dreams of the market at dawn, but a dream market, where the good melon man is always there, and the fish argue their own freshness, and her basket fills itself with the best of everything at yesterday's prices. The spice corner in this dream is open and unlocked, and nobody minds. She trades recipes with cooks she has never met, from houses she has never entered, all of them speaking the one language of the trade. She will wake with a better idea for the bream. Kitchens harvest their dreams the way slopes harvest sun, quietly, and serve them at supper without a word. The old vine watchman in his hut above the slope dreams of vintages, not one, all of them, his 50 harvests poured together, the singing and the baskets and the purple-stained laughing crews of half a century, every face young again at the long tables in the dusk. His dog dreams at his feet, paws working, of the one badger. Down the slope the grapes sweeten through the night, minding themselves, and the 2 old centuries sleep like the trusted men they are. The harvest watch is kept, this hour entirely by stars. The lamp maker dreams of a lamp that lights itself, and in the dream this is not strange but simply his best work at last. It sits on the shelf glowing softly among its dark brothers, and customers come from other towns to see, and he explains modestly that the trick is in listening to the clay. He will wake knowing the dream was nonsense and feeling, all morning, obscurely proud. The waterman dreams of the pipes in perfect tune, the whole town's plumbing humming one clean chord under the streets, and himself the only man who can hear it, which, he would point out, is roughly his Tuesday. And in the house of the garden, the small daughter dreams of the lizard. It is emerald in the dream, and the size of a dog and profoundly friendly, and it walks with her down the colonnade, while the painted birds fly out of the walls to ride on its back, which they clearly would, if things were fair. She laughs in her sleep, one small bright note, and in the next room her mother, not fully waking, smiles at the ceiling, the way mothers answer laughter even from the far side of sleep. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars, above 10,000 dreams. Bread and donkeys, white linen, lost tunes, warm pools, friendly monsters, lamplit rounds, enormous fish. Not one dark dream in the whole town tonight, or none we will record. The historian's page is blank. The story chooses kindness and stands by it. There is an hour in every town when even the night workers are quiet, and Pompeii is inside it now. The bakery has not yet stirred. The watchmen are off their round, bench-bound, dice put away. Even the dogs' parliament is adjourned till dawn. What is left is the town at its rock bottom of stillness, and at the bottom, as always, you can hear its heart plainest. The fountains, first and always, 40 stone faces, pouring in 40 empty streets, the sound married so completely to the silence that they have become each other. This is the water's own hour. It runs for nobody, past shuttered counters and dreaming thresholds, filling and brimming and running on, mountain to arch to spout to drain to sea. The whole patient circuit, all night, every night, an aqueduct's length of tenderness delivered to a town that is not even awake to see it. The offer never closes. It was never really about the drinking. Down at the shore, the tide is doing its small Mediterranean turning, a hand's breadth of change, enough to reseat the boats at their moorings one by one. A soft chorus of nudged hulls going around the basin like a rumor. The pier fire glitters on the moving water. In the fish sauce yards the vats work on, ripening by starlight, adding their patient fraction. The sea, which delivered this whole town its living all day, spends the night quietly redelivering the boats to their ropes over and over, as if practicing. Dew is settling on the stepping stones, on the bronze of the fountain spouts, on Ferox's threshold mosaic, dulling the day's warm stone smell into something cooler and greener. The smell of the small hours everywhere on this coast. A cat crosses the main street in no hurry whatever. The entire town hers by night. High up, a shooting star draws its brief line and is gone, unwitnessed, or witnessed only by the lighthouse keeper, who has seen 10,000 and still, on principle, wishes. The town at this hour is best read by the nose, and the small hours have their own bouquet, layered street by street, bread first and always, the warm gold thread of it running from the bakery block downwind through half the quarter. Then the green, cool smell of running water on stone, which is the fountain's signature, and the closest thing the night has to a taste. Sea salt, arriving in slow pulses when the air stirs. Rosemary and myrtle from 100 walled gardens, each one leaking its little cloud over its own wall. Banked charcoal, faint and everywhere. The smell of 10,000 kept fires keeping, and under it all the bass note, old sun-warmed stone giving its heat back to the dark. The smell of the town itself, which its sailors say they can catch from the water, blindfolded, a mile out. A town's night smells are its honest autobiography. Nothing in that list can be faked, and nothing in it is for show. It is simply what a place is, breathed out while it sleeps. Bread, water, salt, garden, fire, warm stone. You could reconstruct this whole town from those 6 words, and this whole coast, and honestly a fair portion of all human happiness anywhere. The night walker learns them, the way the watchman learned his lights and latches, and on the darkest street, with the moon down and the lamp out, he would still know exactly where he was. Home. It smells of home here, at this hour, in every direction. In the houses, the deepest tide of sleep. The lamps are out or down to their last blue thumbnail of flame. Sleepers have found the positions they will hold till morning. The honest sprawls and curls of people long past pretending. Somewhere a baby stirs, is gathered, without either party fully waking, into the world's oldest arrangement and settles. Somewhere a shutter taps twice in a breath of sea air, and thinks better of it. The town breathes. You can genuinely hear it at this hour, if you stand still in the middle of the main street, which you can at this hour. 10,000 sleepers, one long slow breath. The night shift of the air is on duty too, mostly unseen. The bats have the lanes now, little soft-winged accountants of the lamplight, working the moths above the corner shrines in quick silent arithmetic. An owl holds the cypress by the northern gate, the same tree her line has held past anyone's counting. She puts her one round question to the dark at intervals. The answer is the usual answer, which is nothing, and it appears to satisfy her. The swifts are gone up into the high dark to sleep on the wing. As they do, they drift over the town in slow circles, half their small minds at a time. It is the strangest and loveliest sleep in all of nature, and it is happening right now, far above the roofs, if you care to know it is there. Nothing hunts anything with any urgency. Nothing hurries. The night creatures of a settled town live off its abundance the way the cats and the gray dog do, comfortably, by long arrangement. The owl asks, the bats tally, the swifts wheel, asleep on the black air, between the stone town below and the star town above. This soft third city goes about its rounds, and has, over every sleeping roof since roofs began. Far off, out on the Black Bay, the late fishing boat has made its mooring at last, and its lamp goes out, the night's final small light retired. The pier fire holds alone now, tended, flickering on the harbor water. First kayaks are still a good hour off. The east holds no hint yet. The night is at its widest, its deepest. It's most owned by no one. The same hour you have kept in a longhouse and an abbey and now here. The hour that belongs to every sleeper equally and to none of them. The freehold of the world. The mountain is only a shadow on the stars. And even the stars are drifting west now. Slow as the vintage sweetening on the slopes. Nothing in Pompeii needs anything. Nothing in Pompeii is wrong anywhere. Hold the town in that sentence, a moment. Whole and warm and breathing in the dark by its running water. This is the hour we came for. This is the one we will keep. And here, gently, is where our road and the town's road part, because morning is coming up the sky's eastern stair, and we are not going to meet it. This story ends in the dark on purpose, with everyone safe. We will not follow Pompeii into its mornings. That was the agreement we made at the sea gate, you and I, and we have kept it all night, and we will keep it now. You know what history knows. The town does not, and the town is right not to. Because tonight, this night, the one we walked, nothing in it is anything but true. The bread is rising in the warm dark, really rising. The fountains are running, really running. The grapes are sweetening on the slope. The cloth is drying on the roof under the stars. The dreams are kind. The dogs are at their doors. The small gods have their crumb and their splash of wine and their families to mind. None of that is a trick of the story. It happened, all of it, night after ordinary beautiful night. Thousands of them, each one as real as this. History keeps what ended. It is very bad at keeping what simply, sweetly, repeatedly was. That is what stories are for. So this is what we do, listener, you and I. With the ending we are not going to tell. We trade it for the truth of tonight. Pompeii whole. Pompeii asleep. The baker's daughter with her hand, still curled from scratching a donkey's ears. The magistrate afloat in his dream of warm water. The small girl and her emerald lizard. The watchmen and their beans. The cat on the fish slab. The painted birds and the real ones sharing the same fig tree. A town of 10,000 souls. Every single one of them tonight all right. We leave them exactly so. We leave them sleeping. And you, wherever your bed is, take the town's own good night with you. The one it never had to say aloud. Bank your fires. Latch your door. Set your small lamp's picture facing the room. The fountains will run all night, whether anyone comes or not. And somewhere the watch is walking. And the offer, remember, never closes. Sleep the way Pompeii sleeps tonight. In the middle of an ordinary evening, in the middle of a long, warm, unfinished summer. It is the best sleep there is. Above the sleeping roofs, the stars wheel slow. Below them, the fountains keep the town's one promise. And the mountain, old neighbor, quiet grandfather of the vines, is only a shadow on the stars. It was only ever tonight, a shadow on the stars. Good night, old city. Sleep well. This was worlds before morning. Good night.